6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Live from the Rob Christensen Radio Network Satellite Studio, it's Jim and Rob Overanalyze the Movies. Ooh. Hello, everybody. Hi there, and welcome to Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, the show for movie lovers who love to talk about movies as much as they love watching them. Tonight, we're going to be taking a hard look, we're going to be taking a look at HBO's Game Change, a film following John McCain's 2008 U.S. presidential election against then-Senator Barack Obama, and his and how the game changed, how that campaign fundamentally changed when his strategists recommended Alaska's Governor Sarah Palin as his vice presidential candidate. Now let's take a quick look at the trailer.
We need to create a dynamic moment in this campaign, or we're dead. If you are going to seriously consider the governor of Alaska, you have to call her now.
This is Sarah.
You know, they say the difference between a hockey mom and a pit bull? Lipstick.
CNN has it even with Obama.
We can really win this thing.
I'm not sure how much she knows about foreign policy.
You can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska.
Oh my God, what have we done?
You're telling me what to say, what to wear, how to talk. I am not your puppet.
I can't control her anymore.
I just don't want to let John down.
She's a great actress, right? Why don't we just give her some lines?
If I am single-handedly carrying this campaign, I'm going to do what I want.
It's not about you. It's about the country. This isn't a campaign of on the run.
48 hours, no one will even remember who she is.
All righty. Okay, so now let's welcome my special advisor to this campaign, Mr. Jim Cheboyko.
We're down in Iowa. No, don't cheer that. We need to raise 7 points. There's 3 weeks left. What's wrong with you people?
Geez, Jim, it's like you had an opinion on that bit. How you doing, sir?
Good. I thought Frankenstein was great. Anyway.
Okay, looks like we've already got a couple of folks in the chat. So quickly, let's say hello to Richard and Katie. Good to see you. And as folks join us, we'll be sure to say hello. But great seeing you, Richard and Katie. It being politicos, political. I don't know. Can you say it, fans, hobbyists, enthusiasts? I'm expecting a lot of contribution from them. All right, Jim. Yeah, like what was your take? What do you got to say?
Pretty interesting stuff. And afterwards, I looked at some of the reactions of the movie when it first came out in 2012. And a lot of them said that it was a not unsympathetic portrait of Sarah Palin. And I thought, were we watching the same movie? But basically, yeah, it won tons of awards, and it was sort of a bigger. I didn't watch it at the time because I didn't have HBO, like a lot of people. And now that I have it, I can go back and watch some of the deep cuts. But she, like Julianne Moore, I think won an Emmy. If you look up IMDb, this is classified as a TV movie. And I'd like to sort of, I think there's a difference between a TV movie and an HBO movie. But in any case, we might want to discuss that later. But yeah, I thought it was really solid. I thought Ed Harris was great. I love when actors who usually play one type play another. And I think he was playing it against type. I think it's safe to say that. Woody Harrelson, I kind of see too much, and then he always wins me over within about 2 minutes. So, and then Julianne Moore, she was good. There's some aspects of the way her character were handled that I'd like to discuss in a little bit, but I thought she did a fine job, and I thought primarily it was really weird to see the intercut scenes. I thought, who's going to play Joe Biden? And of course, they intercut it with actual Joe Biden. So that sort of went on through the whole movie. It was pretty well done. I mean, you could tell a little bit, but yeah, no, I was glad to have watched this. How about you?
Jim, I feel similar, very similar. It was a pretty solid flick. I would say, yeah, HBO, so its quality was there, but it was still what I thought was a pretty solid movie of the week. I thought it was a television movie. It had that feel. It reminded me of, just a really high quality 70s or 80s movie of the week, 80s into the 90s. It was shot really straight ahead, like they were, like, again, like I usually do in some of the notes I put down on what I was expecting. Exaggerated Alaskan accent, comedy lighting, and I don't mean that in a making fun, but all very bright lights. You see everything. There's no drama, which was fine by me. I really just wanted to get as much straightforward information. A really straightforward mise en scene, like very straight blocking, like it. Yeah, you know what? It was in a way, and this is one of the things, and I might be stealing from our good friend Shashank, but it really did, I think, let the natural drama of what was going on speak for itself. They didn't let, it wasn't like Fincher-esque, where it's like, and then the dramatic camera move, or, like it really just let it speak for itself. And that's unfair to Fincher. He's more of a straight kind of slight pan. I'm mixing up my snooty director references. I did, and I'm not sure how you're going to take it. I did have some, let's say, questions about characterization of them all. It was definitely, I would say, maybe not kid gloves approach, but we're not even going to beat up on Sarah too much. Yeah. And which is, I don't know, it's fine. Again, like it I mean, let's be honest, ideologically, like this is not just to go through the food part of our the ingredients list, kicked the Bechdel test's ass. No reframe stamp for this. It was a very much hey, we've got a woman as a star. What more do you want?
Yeah. That's my good deed for the day.
Impressive that we saw two black people, both of which were footage.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, could actually have been just, no, we're going to accurately portray the modern Republican Party. There are no black people in it.
Well, there was Maria who got fired.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
so they can the one black person.
Yeah. The Latino, the slightly Latino,
slightly color. Yeah. Slightly person, BIPOC.
Yeah. I want her gone.
Yeah. So, and let's say, as far as ideology goes, this is very much an not inside baseball, but a very gentle kind of argument for professionals. Let's the professionals. There's no ideology in here, which is an ideology. Like, there's no class analysis. I mean, they say working class, but none of the people who are on screen were working class. So they talk about work. So there's no class analysis, no class consciousness. It's a pretty, like it really does represent, I think, the ideology of the makers of the film. Not intentionally, but very much it's right there. You know, you don't have to go very deep to find, oh yeah, it's all in crowders going, you know, if everyone just left it to us, we know how to serve the country. Anyway, but even that's kind of cool about the film. Like, I mean, it's something you can find more of it that the director and the writers, no one intended, you know? But that's kind of my first take on it. What do you, Jim, what do you want to talk about first? We've got
That's a good one.
Oh. Richard's throwing it down.
Shout out to one of our previous reviewed movies.
But I'm going to say better poster, better special effects. Although there's one part I wanted to ask you, Jim, maybe let's start with this.
Sure.
Did you think and folks, just for those of you who don't know, we are in, if I can find it, you're in the spoiler zone.
McCain lost? What? Damn it.
Did you find there was like a little moment? It was his Charlie Gibson interview, or her Charlie Gibson interview. And it really did look like, it's like, did they paste her face briefly onto Sarah Palin, or did they shoot it that way and it kind of worked?
Yeah.
What did you think? Did it take you out of the movie for a bit?
Not, in as much as anything ever does. For me, it was the debate with Joe Biden, where they had actual Joe Biden, 100% real Joe Biden, debating Julianne Moore as Sarah Palin. And there's one shot with both of them in it, and that would have required some grafting, or I don't know what the technical term is.
Just a great lock off.
Yeah,
With one of those that's one of those times you really can, because they're both on either side. So it's like, okay, we split the, wait a sec. Okay, we split the screen right down the middle. Well, kind of like we are now on screen.
Yeah. And well, they were sort of doing that whole movie with the Charles Gibson interview, with the Katie Couric interview, and what's interesting is that they all had to have doubles, right? You had to have Charles Gibson from behind, Katie Couric from behind. And
you keep going on that. I've just got to step off for a quick second. I am still here, folks, but continue on that. I got to grab my notes. I left it off
in the microwave. Okay.
Yeah.
But there was also the scene with boy, I'm alone. The debate thing was really kind of something, and it was kind of interesting to see Joe Biden, 8 years younger. He actually looks quite a bit different, a little more 12 years, I guess. Yeah. So he looks a little more full faced and that kind of thing. But no, I thought they sort of set it up. So once you know what they're doing, but that's what I was saying, is that you needed body doubles for Katie Couric, Charles Gibson, and then the guy who was stretching.
What you said was gold, Jim.
Yeah, it was. I was stammering and stuttering for 2 minutes. Yeah, but not 2 minutes. But it was funny when the Joe Biden body double was stretching. He's doing his pre-debate stretches in the distance. I sort of half thought that it was going to be Jim Carrey coming out, or one of these people who are playing Joe Biden now. I thought, who have they gone to play him? And of course, it was Joe Biden himself. So
yeah, I think, and which is fine. That's not what it was about, right? Like, they use those clips for verisimilitude. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry, cut you off there.
If they're doing that, they sort of set that up, that's what they're doing. If instead that they had used actors playing the reporters and then led to real Joe Biden, that I think would have been worse. But it became apparent that this was their mode of operation through the movie. When in doubt, use the actual footage, and use the actual footage of Obama. All the and it was just it was kind of.
I'm going to leave Richard's comment up for a while. I think it's just comedy gold. Now, what did you think? Like, as I was, taking notes as we're watching, and I was wondering, like, in some ways, it's almost hard not to read the film as like almost a darkly comic cautionary tale.
Yeah,
like, you remember when we were first talking about the series, kind of taking, political movies, and I suggested Bob Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, now I'm thinking, it's like, I'm glad we didn't. It was almost too, it was unsubtle. This has that perfect darkness without being dark. Because we're like, she's like a proto-Trump. More in some ways, it's funny. We took a look at Rob Ford up here in Canada, then her in this film. I think that's a far better lead up than any fictional, right-wing president, like crazy megalomaniac right-wing president. But in some ways, I think it was foreshadowing. Where did you think where it isn't actually? Because I don't think they're quite the same. But I was wondering what you thought about that. Here, let me wave my book around.
Yeah.
Look, I've got, it's tracked. I have a tract.
Oh my gosh.
Listen to my speechifying.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really, I wasn't, that's a good question in that it's got me stumped. But what I sort of, there was an interesting sort of thing, I don't want to say thing, but there was an interesting puzzle that these guys, the makers of this movie, had to solve, and that is that Palin wasn't that emotional. I mean, she did sort of about halfway through the movie, she started to sort of strike back a little bit and push back against all this stuff that she was warned about at the start, but she didn't seem to be listening then. So when she's such a cipher for most of the movie, you need the others to reflect the uneasiness or the fact that she's failing upward or she's in over her head, or she's just basically, way too overconfident. And so I should have, it would be a good drinking game is having a shot whenever anybody gave another person a knowing look, because they all did, whether it was Peter MacNicol or Woody Harrelson or Jamey Sheridan, who used to be on Law and Order with a beard and a sort of auburn, Robert Wagner
Paulson.
Hair dye. What's that?
Paulson as Nicole Wallace.
Yes, she was great, and they did a lot of that knowing look thing, sort of leading up to the and if you think it sort of had like two little beats at the end, one of which was Ed Harris saying to her, don't be co-opted by the radical wing of the party. And then the very end, when they started sort of chanting Sarah, Sarah, and they actually kind of cornily slow down the film and to show the recognition registering on Woody Harrelson's face there, the Steve character. So that was kind of all the knowing looks like it, and they built up over the course of the movie. They were like half an hour in, and they were sort of like looking at each other. And there was one really great cut of where they were saying, "What does she know about foreign policy?" And so they said, "Well, what about this? What about her reaction to this? What about this versus that?" And then they cut to her in the room with the two foreign policy experts, and they're pointing to a map, and they say, "This is Germany. They were our enemies in the First and Second World War."
Well, I think I wrote down there, Jim. That's a great. I wrote there what I wrote in my notebook there. I was like, yeah, what she needed was an education. Not, we just got to bring her up policy-wise. It was like, no, she needed an education. And it was interesting, like it works in the context of the film, I think, but I'm wondering how it actually played out in real life. Because at some point you go, you can't, we'll just brush her up on calculus when she hasn't, she left math at 9th grade and basically never touched math again.
Yeah.
It's like, that ain't happening. She needs a full education. And it was interesting. Now, they do bring in, and they do kind of break that down and go, no, we got to get her to memorize answers, memorize triggers, so she can properly, give a good enough answer and bring it back to message, which she did a fine job at. And even although the expectations were so low for her in the actual vice presidential debate in real life, that she... people were impressed with her in that, hey, it wasn't the disaster we were all expecting. But in the end, it was still everyone thinking, well, Obama won. Or not Obama, Biden.
Biden won the...
Biden.
Biden. It's funny, all the things that I'd forgotten, all the little digs and slights and things like that. I mean, I remember the SNL stuff, being a huge SNL fan. But so to that, to answer your question, I think the whole thing almost seemed like foreshadowing. And I mean, your question suggests that you think that was something that wasn't.
Well, I think she was in part, Jim. And I don't in a lot of ways, she is. And the film, and what's interesting in that whole, because it was almost like the protagonists are the apparatchiks.
Yeah.
And the party apparatchiks, these advisors and that. And then the antagonist is her. And they did a pretty good job of humanizing her enough that you kind of have an interesting antagonist, or more interesting than I think the actual Sarah Palin is.
Yeah.
But the foreshadowing, or what did I call it? Did I call it foreshadowing?
There was another term, but I just,
But that kind of harbinger of things to come is more, I think, that obsession with making the base happy, the forever having to prove their bona fides to, Rush Limbaugh, Hannity, like all these players who are so involved now, but mostly it's that, and if you can't make the most rabid of us happy, you're going nowhere, and I thought that was more the foreshadowing. What I did think was wrong, and like this movie kind of hammers on it, like Ed Harris, in his McCain moment of you're a leader of the party now. It's like, no, she isn't. She is gone. She really was wiped off. She quit. She, it's almost, I wonder if she looks back and goes, if I just didn't take that offer, I could still be a corrupt, a slightly or even moderately corrupt governor back in Alaska now. Whereas, she's, I think she probably still makes money on speaking gigs and whatnot, like in the most extreme, or not even speaking gigs, appearance fees, but.
It's one of these things, like they mentioned so many names like Tim Pawlenty, who of course was a potential running mate from Minnesota, and I thought, what happened to that guy? And Joe Lieberman's still floating around, swirling the drain there, but one of the more cynical people in I think Washington, but there's a bunch, and even old former CNN people. I thought, what happened to all these, like Candy Crawley and a bunch of folks there? And I I was looking up really quickly on Wikipedia, because that's the quickest and easiest. But what happened to these guys? What are they doing currently? And it really wasn't saying much. Sarah Palin's had a couple of films, so I'm pretty ignorant as to what she's up to. Not films, but TV shows and.
Disappeared.
She started a media channel that lasted a year, and but certainly, certainly not anything like. There doesn't seem to be any current legacy, if that's what I can, or influence. Aside from what she unleashed. Or what was unleashed.
And I don't even think she unleashed it. Like, that's not, it was there. They were like, wow, everyone loves her. Let's put her on. And I think that one of the things that I don't think the filmmakers really understood about what they were showing us all in their film is it's like, no, like there was one line, like almost a throwaway line from like McCain goes, oh, there's an ugly part of American populism. And it's like,
I've written it down. There's a dark side to American populism.
Dark side, thank you.
Some people win elections by tapping into it. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
Paulson and Harrelson look at each other fondly or something. You know, they sort of were not looking at each other, but they were looking at McCain like they wanted to give him a hug or something at that point. But
which is, and that's like, I mean, I think in some ways this is these are the people that a lot of these reporters see almost like a common cause with. They hang out at the same parties, they have dinner together, they're part of the same, let's say, class, or let's say a portion
journalism.
Of the elite. Pardon?
Yeah. That sort of access journalism kind of, you know, Maggie who's it's from New York Times and
yeah, Halperin and all these folks. Like, I mean, they're very entertaining to read, and once in a while they do actually say something, you know, almost like a busted clock. They actually get the issue right.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're not getting actual analysis. You're getting your standard horse race reporting and all that. And even the, you know, like, I mean, the McCain as Maverick had been debunked long ago. You know, I mean, he bucked his party like just about every big shot senator does. Every now and then it's like, I don't want to do it. I think he did redeem himself to a degree within the very narrow context of American political culture. So redeem himself to a small extent, actually, for once challenging voters that he's an Arab, you know, Obama thing. At the same time, they didn't have a problem. Like, you know, heirs became a campaign issue. And even though, like, I'd forgotten about Reverend Wright, but just because he didn't say it didn't mean all the fellow travelers weren't talking about, you know, and so it's one of those areas where I'm like, kind of,
Well, I mean, it's funny. You're talking about sort of the people all moving in the same circles. This was, I'm just sort of looking at my notes here. So based on Game Change, which was a book by Mark Halperin.
Hey, Jim, maybe pull push your mic back, or it's coming in all really loud.
Okay. Maybe turn it down a bit.
Yeah, that'd be great. Oh, perfect.
If the book was based on Game Change by Mark Halperin, who's had trouble with sexual issues, and John Heilemann.
You know what? Let's
hold on.
Let's like, you can't just say sexual issues like he's
harassment,
erectile dysfunction.
No, okay, yeah.
No, he's a Me Too guy.
Yeah. So he's been dinged for harassment. I don't know many details, so I'll just leave it at that. But the other guy is John Heilemann, who is actually one of the hosts of the HBO show The Circus, which is a political show, and they do all these things. So Heilemann actually went to talk to the Lincoln Project folks, which are led...
Which is Schmidt.
By Schmidt.
Yeah. They're all the same folks.
These guys it's like bumper cars, like over 20 years. They just keep on.
Oh, yeah.
And I just watched the last one, or the second last one. And there was a segment where John Heilemann went to the Lincoln Project to watch the debate with them, or the latest debate with them.
Of course.
And so they're all just palling around, having taquitos and, you know, couple pops and so yeah, I mean, they're these guys all write about you, and then we'll hang out for a couple of years, and then whatever.
Well, they're like, I mean, it's, and this isn't, and it happens everywhere. I saw it here at Winnipeg City Hall. You know, it's at every level. So I'm not saying they're all like evil, or I actually think Steve Schmidt's a true believer. You know, like it's. I would think, though, for Halperin and Heilemann, what is what is fundamentally why they're all kind of in sync is they're all well off Washington insiders. And so, and it's interesting that, and because I mean, it's funny. I know people here. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna ramble. I will come back to Kamala Harris eventually.
Oh my.
And what I do want to say is that until the glorious proletarian revolution, Rob's Got to Make Rent. If you're interested in the book the movie was based on, there's actually an affiliate link in the description. So there you go. That's my plug. Where the heck were we, Jim?
So
I went on a ramble and I'm like, I'm about to. It's gonna be one of my 8 clauses, nested parentheticals, and an error message. Oh, you're using the wrong operator. I don't know what's going on. Okay, back to you, Jim. Back to you.
One of the things I think they missed out on, and this is always kind of puzzling to me, she is at some sort of country or city fair with her kids when she gets the call from McCain's people that there's interest in her being the running mate for McCain. And so she takes the call, and it's sort of, I can't remember what the exact lines were, but it was like, hi, Sarah here, and somebody says something, and then it cuts to her going to meet McCain. So you never see her reaction to being first given the news, which I would think would be sort of I hate this term, but it would be a real money shot.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point.
And she's an actress, right? And I sort of wonder if they didn't know how she would. Maybe it was tricky. Maybe they didn't have any inside. Maybe it would just be speculation. Because they do play her as a cipher until she starts to get pouty about the situation that she's been cast into. So I thought that was a real missed opportunity. That was one of the things. I mean, she has a phone throwing scene later on, and she has a couple of freakouts. But when she's told, you'd think, well, that would reveal character, that would reveal all kinds of things. And I sort of am curious as to why they didn't show that.
I'm thinking out loud. It could very well be just a very simple. They got the reaction, but it wasn't working. It was, and that not a knock on Julianne Moore. It just wasn't working in the cut. They're like, and then we'll push in, and she gets this moment, and it's like, this isn't working. It's just not working. And they couldn't get it, and they got to move on. There's plenty of times where Julianne Moore, and I was kind of much like you, Jim. I even wrote down early on that, I think I put it, will Woody Harrelson chew scenery? Will it be and Woody? But you're absolutely right. There's a certain charm to that guy. He gets it. Julianne Moore really kind of I thought she held her own.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Held her own. Like, I'm talking about some 16-year-old. I'm so impressed with this young lady. No, I mean,
you're very articulate. Yeah.
No, what I was really impressed that she could play this character without her chewing scenery, because she's an even more, in my personal opinion, more ridiculous than any of these people. Like her herself, that she was able to give her some sympathy and bring us into the psychology of who she thinks Sarah Palin is. I thought was really good. And there was a great, like, a little moment where she reached out for Nicole Harris's hand just before, and that was just that briefly got me to feel bad for her.
Yeah.
Later on, and I wanted to see how you felt, but for myself, Jim, there is a great point, and I was nodding along, which only shows how much I actually buy this utter bullshit. Katie's got an important point in the chat, but I want to finish mine first. Schmidt calls McCain. She could fall apart. She might be just about to go through a mental breakdown. She might be having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah. And
McCain looks really awesome and aware and friendly and soft and everything. And he goes, well, maybe, we threw her in the deep end. That poor kid. Yeah. And I think he even referred to her as that poor kid, we threw her in the deep end. Let's get her some rest, some R&R. She's away from her family. Like every fact up to except for the deep end part, I agree and I believe. But this is where I'm like, oh wait, back the truck up. This is, I guess, one of the not a flaw of the movie. The movie's great, but one of the things that bugs me the most of this narrative about her. And it just goes to show how effective Julianne Moore was, how effective the director was, is I bought it for a brief moment. I'm like, no, this is becoming the president of the United States. Suck it up. Mm-hmm. And I'd even go further, Jim, and say that notwithstanding the stress and everything, there is, and it's been like this now for at least a few decades, like from when I have been occasionally active in electoral politics. There's a body person. Campaign managers are obsessed with keeping their candidate healthy, making sure they get sleep, making sure they get fed properly. There's a body person. They call them the body person. They call the woman the body person.
Yeah.
The one who's like forever, hey boss, you look thirsty, you look this. She needs a day off, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. So this kind of like, it dawned on him way late in the campaign. I'm calling bullshit on that, Jim. And I'm also calling BS on she didn't know. Like, again, it goes back to my narrative, and this is how I can bring it back to Kamala Harris. It's this horseshit about, I had no choice. There was nothing else. And I think this is where they're also insidey. They also want to give this sympathy to these elected officials when it's like, no one made them do this job. No. Not one person ran for office because a gun was held to their head. Well, it's not like, okay, I'll run for governor, Does the system, and this is something they didn't really explore, given Mr. Halperin's past, maybe we're finding out why. One of the things that disturbed me about her candidacy was it was not totally, a big chunk of it was driven on her sex appeal, for, a number of reasons, but also that they didn't actually kind of say, hey, why don't we take a look at the woman's experience here? Not just her as this, we got to protect her and let's get her her family. That cures all the ails of a woman politician, her family. It's like, you know what? They kind of went both ways, but I bought it for a brief second. Then I'm like, wait a second. No one made her do this. And no way a campaign would ignore the mental and physical well-being of their candidate that long. Oh, bullshit on that.
Well, there's a couple things going on here, and
here's an interesting. Before we back to poor Ms. Palin, Katie didn't know this until yesterday, but Palin's husband, old Todd, filed for divorce last year, and it was finalized this year.
Todd's got to be free.
Back to the independent Alaska party.
And they actually use the term Eskimo in the movie, which is interesting. There's a couple things going on here, and I'm not. just
and
throwing it out.
Just to get a couple of these comments,
Sure.
Richard, using real Joe Biden clips for Joe Biden is sort of like bending bicycles off screen.
That's more inside baseball.
More witty wordplay. More Colin shouting out. What would he call it? That an Eastburn? No, it's a callback. Callback to our earlier hits.
A hollaback, maybe.
Hollaback.
So, I mean, you're saying you think that it was bullshit that they were sort of not really all that responsive to her needs, her immediate needs. I mean, you could be right, but also, and you also mentioned the word hobbyist. You dropped that earlier on. I can't remember what the context was now. But these are people
referring to people like myself.
Okay.
And this is actually me, Richard, Katie. There's some folks, they're active in a political party. Not as, I mean, it's a lot more than me, but I would still maybe call us, we're activists, but I don't know.
Sure. But
I would definitely call myself a hobbyist.
Okay.
Like, it's one of those things. I avoid regular meetings now. I don't. I'm a pretty lackadaisical donator. So eventually they get around to getting, Rob, we really need that updated credit card number, and I'm like, oh, damn it! All right, here you go. No
speak English.
And yet, I still am kind of aware of what's going on in the political party I support. I am aware. I love these kind of movies because I like the inside baseball thing.
So, hobbyists.
I would call myself a hobbyist. Those folks, professional apparatchiks.
They are professional, but they aren't very good professionals. They foisted responsibilities off on one another. I mean, this is going for the president, the office of the president of the United States. Hold on. They initially said, I thought you vetted her on this. Oh, we thought he vetted her. So there was that. They both dropped the ball in that case. And it was done rushed. It was, some of the other professionals around them said, this is going too fast. They were warned. Everybody was warned. She was warned. They were warned. And they initially got that high because she was a bit of a kind of an interesting choice. But they did come across as people who had, let in a goal from center in the Stanley Cup Finals. Basically, like these were huge mistakes, and so I'm sort of thinking that. It's always like this. They're called in at the last minute. Hey, do you want to spend the next 6 months hitting the road with me? That kind of thing, which is what happened to Schmidt at the start. But yeah, they did not run a tight ship. And that's kind of a big deal, especially when and it was a really cynical movie because they basically, in preparing her for the debate, they
treated her like an actress.
Yeah,
gave her lines. Yeah,
and it was, and that's probably the most cynical thing of all is that she just needs to know this stuff now, and then whatever happens. But we can teach her the answers to 25 questions and a couple of other points. She doesn't need to learn this stuff now, and I just thought that's that kind of the opposite of. Or it is kind of, give him a man a fish and he eats for a day, teach him to fish and da-da-da-da. Anyway, well, so in that sense, it was a pretty cynical movie, I thought, about people who were basically dropping the ball.
Yeah. I don't even think the movie isn't cynical on its face.
Yeah.
It really does. Like, all reports are the campaign was a bit of a hot mess. Mm-hmm. Which is not a rare thing, actually. These are weird little wars. Everyone gets promoted if there's a win. Mm-hmm. And whether or not they had anything to do with the win.
Yeah.
And I've seen it here in Winnipeg at City Hall. It's like, you think you won because you are so brilliant. No, context. What I think, one of the things to talk about to speak to what you were saying there, Jim, and On one level, I agree with you totally. Like, it's a bunch of drop balls. What I found really true, though, about it, and now here's where I had some sympathy for these apparatchiks. It's the candidate wants X, and everyone, as is their job, this is why that one sucks. This is why that one sucks. This is why that one sucks. And meanwhile, they're against this wave of history that didn't necessarily look like it at the time, you know, the fog of war and all that. Yeah. And all of a sudden, you're at that level, those stakes, all of a sudden, if you think it's something you're losing, like this is our shot, and you win the nomination, then all of a sudden you might be losing it. And this is human, a big part of how human beings assess risk is once they're in it and they think they're losing, like the whole movie could have been just about sunk costs and how they just kept throwing good metaphorical money after bad. But to go there where it's like, so the candidate didn't get who they wanted, and all of a sudden they're backed up to 5 days before the convention. That is the real error here, that they didn't have a nice long list of solid candidates and an understanding at the highest levels of the campaign. And this means the candidate that, you know what, no matter what, this is what we're going to do. And even, and you could kind of see that where the candidate thinks of himself as, I do what's right, not what's popular, while at the same time doing what's wrong because it's popular. A lot of these disasters start right with the egomaniac, whether total narcissist like the current incumbent, or, you know, these folks, they love to be loved, but you know, they're all egomaniacs, and it starts there. If that egomaniac can't make a choice and kind of say, suck it up, losers, we're doing this, or have that hard talk way back, then you're going to have these mistakes. Then what you've got, and I really do see the movie this way, is, and the Nicole Wallace character was the one who voiced it later, it's like, well, you just wanted her. No one asked the hard questions because they didn't want to screw it up. Yeah. In a way, they did what everyone who's made a bad hire does. They've fallen in love with the candidate, so they go shop for the right references. You know, just tell me what I want to hear. And they don't ask the hard questions. Hey, have you ever actually done this before? You know, yeah. It's like, and I think that's what we really saw. And so, was it cynical? I just thought it was really accurate. Yeah. Even to the point where, I can't believe we did this, as he looks to the person who was at the beginning saying, she's not right, this isn't right, she's not ready, and she's not us. I can't remember the character's name or the actor's name, but it was middle-aged white guy. Yes, it was Woody Harrelson looking over, I can't believe we did this, and the guy just briefly looks at him like, what's we? Where did this we come in? And then they kind of just kept moving. But even up to the point where they're not even telling him. No one's telling him that she's a disaster. And what they're doing is, and again, we all do this. We ride the wave of, oh, did I make a bad call? And then all of a sudden the character does something good. Oh, okay, this is going to work out. And then all of a sudden down here, oh my God, I can't believe we did this. Should we do something? But nothing's done because, oh, well, I'm here already. And then all of a sudden it kind of looks okay. And then back in the toilet. And then it looks okay. Yeah. Even including her. And that's classic elected official. Like, again, these people are egomaniacs. And there she is. I can win this. It's like, no, any normal person would go, you know what? I think I got really lucky that I'm no longer a laughing stock. I could get through this, go back to Alaska, No, she's really thinking, I can win this. She's looking at all these rallies just like Trump does. Yep. Oh, they love me, and that's why we're doing well, and we could just have a bigger rally. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we're really seeing here in that character, is this idea. It would be interesting if the whole movie, and this is where it could have been a better movie, just do it all from her perspective. Even as we see what's really, as everyone's going, who is this whack job? But otherwise show it from her perspective, because that's actually kind of fascinating.
It is. I sort of wonder if they didn't have it being based on a book, I sort of wonder if they didn't have that sort of access. And she, once again,
they didn't have any of that access.
Yeah.
She hates these people who wrote the book. And it was like a big testament to, this should all be left to professionals. This is what you get when you hire a hillbilly. Yeah. All these apparatchiks look pretty good, even though you're right, Jim. They all dropped the ball.
Well, and
even
to
the
circle
media.
The point that I was that I lost on my own just in the was that the communication was really bad. Like, at one point, Sarah Paulson's Nicole Wallace, who's actually an MSNBC anchor now.
My current right-wing crush. Yes. Continue.
And she says to Schmidt, what does she say? I can't remember the exact line now.
Did it have to do when she was like, did anyone ask her about this stuff?
Yeah. I think she was just trying to, she's already had her run in, which was actually a very satisfying scene when they were shouting at each other on the phone. But yeah, I had forgotten the line exactly, but anyhow, I did want to point out, basically just that the communication was horrible, and they didn't even
thing, Jim. That's by design.
Yes, she couldn't even tell, or Schmidt hadn't even said anything to McCain about her. Yeah,
but that's by design, or not? Not design. That's just the nature of these things. Yeah. You don't tell the boss bad news, especially when you're the one pushing that solution. Mm-hmm. That's not bad communication. That's
ass covering, or is it?
Not even. It's just the human nature of these efforts, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if the person at top does not encourage, walkbacks and that, this is not what people do at that level. Go, I really dropped the ball. He's kind of remarkable in that him, Nicole Wallace, like some of these folks who afterwards said, God, we blew it there. You know what happened after he did that interview with, what's his name?
Anderson Cooper?
Like, him and McCain never spoke again. McCain thought that was the height of disloyalty.
Yeah.
Calling it what it was, that this was a terrible idea. And they put this ding-dong this close to the presidency.
Oh, yeah.
And what advance 8 years, and we all go, we know exactly what that president looks like now. Mm-hmm. The last 4 years have been a Palin presidency. You didn't need to, the country was looking, that portion of the American public was looking for crazy. And Sarah Palin wasn't it, so they moved on to the next crazy whack job that would tell them what they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Racist, sexist, fantasies about the past. They were looking for a fascist, or they were open to a fascist message. And so it's not that there's bad communication, like, if we only had gotten together. They were never going to get together, Jim.
Yeah,
Nobody tells this person what they need to hear, because at that point, he doesn't want to hear it. Like, look, he had to go into a broom closet to finally say, I'm really worried about her. A month away from the election, if it's that bad, somebody should have been telling McCain, this is... Hey, boss, we got to have an honest conversation. We picked a lame. Do you want to... I don't think we cannot stick with her, but we have to have a way to just sideline her throughout the campaign, because she'll screw us up. This probably means you'll lose.
I don't.
Nobody wants to have that tough conversation, especially if they're going to get fired.
I don't.
Sorry, I really jumped on you on that one.
No. I was sort of, I was also thinking that, and this is probably didn't happen because it didn't happen, but it would have been nice to have had a scene between McCain and Palin early on, because they must have met in some way, but I don't think there was, or if there was, it wasn't very substantial. But
it was incredibly brief early on.
I think, and maybe that again is how they handle things.
That's
we always assume they're best friends, right? We always there's all those memes.
No, never assume that. It was being reported on the day, Jim. It's like they barely knew her. She was a nobody from nowhere. Remember that? There's a great scene in the hotel, in the motel where they've had her hidden. You're the seventh person, and Nicole Wallace's character, she's looking, and she's Governor Palin from Alaska. Oh, right.
Yeah.
It's like that she's able. I love the way that Sarah Paulson held her look like, I don't know who you fucking are, and thank you for feeding me the line, the name, so I could say, and congratulations.
Yeah.
Jim, I gotta reel back here. I jumped on you on this in part because I'm so fired up about it. Like it is a great unintentional description of how this shit works. You know, especially with high stakes, large organizations where it's really hard to see, is the person actually doing a good job? Who knows? History tells us usually, right?
Yeah.
Nobody likes to deliver that kind of bad news. Nobody wants to be the bad news guy, especially when you're the one who said, yeah, boss, I think we have a winner. And where the hell was McCain at the beginning saying, I'd rather go down swinging?
Yeah.
Well, then where's your country first bullshit, man? Like,
yeah, and the other question that came up during this is why did he want the job in the first place? Like, I sort of look at some of these people. The current occupant of the big house doesn't appear to enjoy it very much.
That's a great question.
Why would McCain want it? His own party often turned against him. There was that story, and I heard it on NPR, I think right around the time that McCain died in 2018. There was the whole setup that he had a black child out of wedlock.
Oh, that whole
from
thing
his
that
own
the Bush
party
campaign.
Like they're it's that Lee Atwater, excuse the language, that rat fucking thing, that Lee Atwater bullshit.
Nixon, all those pieces of shit.
Just that, and they turn against their own, and this is this is common in organizations. I could mention Germany in the 30s, but I don't want to make that distinction. But just like they often turn on their own, and just to do that within the own party, like I can see Oppo research, I can see a few other things, but planting stories about. Oh, that's so sickening to me. And that was true. And they mentioned it a little bit on that. They didn't really expound too much on it. But I just
it's a TV movie. You're not going to get that deep a look.
Why? Maybe he really loves service. But why did he want the job? I mean, there's a part of me that likes McCain, and that was. I'm sort of curious as to what kind of president he would be. I don't know that he would be all that great. I think there'd probably be a few more wars. Etc. But it would be, kind of, not at the expense of Obama losing, of course. But anyhow, he couldn't do worse than Bush,
Yeah. Well, and again, impressive for a film to as history, American electoral history, and I said it at the time. I don't believe this is my rewriting my own history. I said it at the time. Very happy for Americans in that they're just so wrapped up in it. But this guy's at best a reformer, and not even a radical one. I wasn't thinking great policy things are going to come from him. It's a Democratic Party. There's the second most capitalist party. And now I get to pick on poor Kamala Harris, notwithstanding.
Yeah, what do you have in for her?
notwithstanding a lot of Canadians loving her, she is no friend of the working class. She would be a great Tory leader here in Canada. You know, this is, and it's interesting. I think in some ways this movie gives us an idea what was going on what was already well underway at the Republican Party, and how some of these, what I would call, and you meet conservatives here in Canada who will go, well, I'm not socially conservative, I'm fiscally conservative, and maybe a hawk on foreign policy, a more nationalist foreign policy, robust, all those, you know, code words for let's buy more guns. What Steve Schmidt, all those apparatchiks, you know, even McCain to a degree, you know, were kind of the like a part of the Republican Party that had been running the show for so long, it didn't realize that it was a very small part of the Republican Party. And once their kind of alliance of like, hey, we'll get the neocons, we'll have the fiscal types, we'll have this, the evangelicals, you know, they kind of cobble together this, and they think it's a coalition. They can play each other off against each other, but you have to have a reasonable person in charge. And it was like, no, that nationalist, racist, you know, fascist wing that was always kind of there, that, and mixed to Americans, the larger American culture's fascination with tent revivalism, you know, this idea we can go back to a better time. We kind of saw how it was playing out in the film, and this is all what's his name? Trump.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's, in a lot of ways, this is probably one of the things that maybe Schmidt and his fellow, you know, his compatriots are probably kind of going, yeah, we'll never be able to go back into the Republican Party we thought we were part of doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Was already disappearing then. Palin was just a foreshadowing of what was to come as far as that base.
Yeah.
You know?
Hey, for those who don't know, I know that Richard.
Oh wait,
we
got some comments here. I'm gonna just rattle them all. Okay, so Richard, good analysis. Struck me as a good representation of political staff. One thing, I think that political staff are used to quirky or flaky candidates and making them look good. And provincial NDP. Not sure where Katie's going with that. But she's got back. If she could chime in just to make sure we understand what the context is there. And then Shashank.
Who's reviewed the trial of the Chicago 7, I see, and it's just come out. What are you doing?
It's a solid review. I recommend you check it out.
Did he get a
we should
preview
talk
copy,
about
or?
it. No, it's on Netflix.
I know. I was just kidding.
Well, we watched it on the weekend. Unlike ourselves.
Yes.
You know, kind of.
Well,
no, I already planned my next 3 weekends out. I can only watch one movie.
Yeah.
This young man. Well, would do it if we were young men. It's like, I can watch 4 movies tonight. Okay. Oh, Richard's got like Dan Quayle or even Reagan, who they referenced as saying trees cause pollution.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Katie's chiming in, and I couldn't agree more.
Okay. Yeah.
Both federal and provincial NDP. Yeah, that's just the nature of any organization. Wow. It is, you know, well, like large organizations, like big companies, they encourage eliminate external competition, encourage internal competition. And you've even heard it. Lots of people out there believe, well, it's through a good nomination fight that the cream rises to the top. The cream of people willing to fight.
Well, also there was that note about in the movie, and I think this is relevant. There's about the neediness of guys like, I think they said people who needed to be loved, like Clinton and Bush and Reagan. There was almost what was that, like not a psychosis, but like there's a psychological condition that they needed it. So,
and most elected officials I've ever met, Jim, have that in spades, both a deep need, please love me,
like
on
a
one-to-one level. They want to be liked, they want to be loved, like, I mean, on a personal level, they want to connect with you. At the same, so they super thin-skinned, but also then they will avoid, and part of the problem with that, it's great in a politician because the public wants to feel they're loved by their elected officials. It's why we vote for them. Like when I'm seeing I've made this mistake. I voted for Jagmeet Singh. I am a New Democrat. I voted for him. I got caught up in the love thing when that woman attacked him and he was so cool about it. And looking back, it's like I threw out everything I ever knew and understood about how this kind of thing works. There was no analysis. Well, that's the kind of guy I'd like to see running our party. And
I could have a beer with him.
Personally, I regret that choice. Deeply regret that choice. I really thought I made I still think I made a mistake. And the sooner he and the NDP part ways, the happier I'll be. And part of it, like I got caught up in the same BS. Meanwhile, Sarah Palin, she's a little more like Trump in that she loves that crowd thing. Although mind you, she liked the rope line. Yeah.
It's funny.
Trump ain't a rope line guy.
They didn't really portray it as careerism as much as they did that sort of contact high that she got from the work in the crowd and that sort of thing. But
there's kind of a level of ambition that you have to have to get to even a governor. Like, I mean, mayor. You got to really there's a certain arrogance that's required of an elected official to say, of the thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, whatever, this is a number we cannot actually properly conceive. I'm the best.
Yeah.
Me. I'm the only one who knows what we should do.
Who has 2 thumbs and all the answers? This guy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So at the same time, like going back to Katie's comment and something you talked about, Jem, that turning against their own is it. I remember it was something my dad taught me when he was describing union politics when we were both living in Le Village Canadien, and the old man said, well, labor movement tends to eat its own. All organizations do that, and until they find that winner, which is also where McCain's coming from, it's I got to find a winner or I'll be eaten alive.
Yeah,
they're out to get me at all levels. But it's also, I think, going back to what you were talking about, Jim, why is this guy doing it? Mm-hmm. Which is a great question. I think, there's some of the general ones I thought, but do you think, though, they tried to answer it in the movie?
Unless I missed it. I mean, it may have just been part of his narrative frame that he constructed for himself. And his story is amazing. Like, the guy was a Vietnam prisoner of war. He was a fighter pilot. He was, he had the sort of the wacky first part of his life where he's a big carouser and kind of a studly fighter pilot, and then he sort of was literally brought down to earth by being shot down, landing, I think, right in the middle of the city in some sort of pond or something, and then being dragged out, and he was beat up. His arms were broken. He couldn't. And I thought Ed Harris did a great job of his physicality, like that.
That whole thing is still from when he was tortured in Hanoi.
Yeah, and he couldn't raise his hands above his head, I don't think. There was a few a few things like that, but
permanent disabilities.
Yeah, and but not in the imitation sense, but he just I thought he did a really good job. I bought the physicality. I love brown contact lenses and people that don't usually associate with brown eyes, because it just they were, you could see them if he was even in the background of a scene, these big brown peepers. But there's actually a really sweet scene at the very end, and it sort of reminded me of sort of, you don't often see it, but sort of screen portrayals of platonic male intimacy, when they knew that they had lost the election. And Schmidt kind of comes in the room, and it's just those two, and he puts a tumbler or a little glass beside him.
Pours him a drink.
But he uses his hand for the ice, and they both look at him using his bare hand to put the ice in the drink. And it was a nice little touch.
Yeah.
Because normally, you think, oh, is it tongs? Isn't that it? But he just takes a big handful, puts it in, and then pours them a drink, and then they have a little sip. And little touches like that.
I thought a little art. Yeah, no, they had these great little moments. And again, like, there's that great little moment with Palin and Nicole Wallace, and I'm kind of curious. I'd like to, maybe in the actual book, or there's some interview with Nicole Wallace. Like, all I've ever found of her talking about this movie was how she found it at times uncomfortably accurate. But I'm, when they held hands, those little moments, I think we're good to humanize these people, because they are human beings. And maybe it's what makes this a really solid movie of the week and well worth watching.
Oh yeah.
But it's not. It's not ideologically. Oh, we got. Oh, Jelly Duck. Ahmed. Yes, Ahmed. This movie was this movie based on Sarah Palin? Yes, it was. Well worth your time, my friend. Where was I going with this? Humanizing them.
Yes.
You know what? You could have had, I think it could have been a great movie. Like, great. If, just make it about Sarah Palin, her experience, really get into it. What makes someone say yes when they're so patently unqualified?
Yeah.
Or... never mind. Just show us little slivers of her, or do what they did with every other real person that wasn't acting. Just news clips of her, and what makes these apparatchiks behave the way they do. There could have been a really great character study, right?
Yeah.
Or kind of go even further into the politic of it, or the ideology of the film. Kind of break that apart and kind of go, okay, what does her candidacy really mean? What does this say about how American political culture works or doesn't work? Because at the same time, like, it's always pretty straightforward. The more you talk about, like, yes, some poor people vote Republican, but the poorer you are, the higher a chance you vote Democrat. This is not these are not the voice of the working class. The media said they're the voice of the working class because they have an interest in maintaining these false dichotomies. But that could have been a more interesting film to look at it from an actual class perspective. But
what's the line? Is that they're the same? They're two wings of the Prosperity Party, or I can't remember exactly. Maybe Richard and Katie know what it is, but they're Democrats and Republicans are two wings of the
Capitalist Party,
or something to that effect. Yeah,
sure. Yeah. I don't know what the saying is, and Richard or Katie. Well, perhaps one of them would be kind enough to look it up for us. My line, the one I always found fascinating in this, I heard years ago, was, what's the second most capitalist party in the world? The Democratic Party. If, some American progressives self-identified progressives call a certain part of that party corporate Democrats. So you can really dive into these weird little splits within the Democratic Party. I would say, though, from if you're to use any kind of Marxist analysis, they're both corporate parties. They're both neoliberal parties. Even Bernie Sanders is really more of a New Deal Democrat, like of the 30s. He may have a class analysis, but it's still no, we just need to manage capitalism.
For the people that don't know, Woody Harrelson plays Steve Schmidt, who is now, for the people that may not live in North America and who may not be following the election as closely as we have or are, he's now broken off I would argue the main character, sort of. And he's part of this, and Rob and I have referred to it before, the Lincoln Project, which is an anti-Trump. It's a Republican, but an anti-Trump organization that sort of barrages the Twitter with memes and all kinds of anti-Trump jokey things and messages and things like that. George Conway, who's Kellyanne's husband, is also one of the Lincoln
members.
Project. So I just wanted to put that out there, that evolution has been kind of interesting. Still, if you're a Democrat, still maybe not your friend. They're the enemy of your enemy. But anyhow,
Jim, we've got the Richard was kind enough to look it up. Gore Vidal. There is only one party in the United States, the Property Party, and it has two right wings, Republican and Democrat.
Zing!
Thank you very much, Richard. Richard Lennon.
Yeah, thank you.
Lennon. Jim, you're. How do I?
The Lincoln Project.
Lincoln Project. Steve Schmidt. All his fellow. Yes. Never mind.
So there's one other scene that I thought was actually kind of interesting that I can't say.
To my book now.
That I can't say that I've seen before. At the very end, when they're losing the election, and Sarah Paulson's Nicole Wallace comes out and talks to Woody Harrelson's Steve Schmidt, and she's crying, and he kind of comes up to her, and I thought, is it medical? Is it is it just dawning on her that they've lost the election? Is it what's going on? And she, in the seconds as they approach each other, and she's in tears, and he doesn't look much better. And she says, and especially in this year with so much sort of vote destroying chicanery going down in the States, she looks at him. She says, "I didn't vote." And she's in tears about it.
I didn't vote.
Didn't vote for him.
I didn't vote.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting. Like, and I did not expect those words to come out of her mouth, but and especially in this what's the word? The vote blocking, basically that a lot
voter
of
suppression.
The votes.
You know what?
Voter suppression.
For all the hype they're giving it, it's like this has been going on for fucking decades. It's not new. They're treating it as new because he's so loud and obvious.
There's a sports saying that goes, "If you're not cheating, you're not trying."
And these hardball folks, again, we don't have to. Trump's just really obvious and dumb about it and crass and ugly. But what Bush's team did to Biden's adopted daughter, they did that. They were okay with that. No one went, what? So it's not, I think, though, what was great about that scene and I do believe this, all those folks, Nicole Wallace, Steve Schmidt, all those folks around, they are Republicans, but they're believers in the Enlightenment view of the world, the they're true believers in the American dream and American democracy, and they really do believe it. And in some ways, I'm kind of curious, do they find that they're no longer involved in electoral politics in the way they used to be? That I would want to ask both of them. It's like, are you kind of happy that because for a lot of years you were traveling with people who really, you can't say they believe, everyone can say America, but can't say they believed it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't believe it from a left-wing perspective. You know, I have a different worldview on this stuff. But for them, I think it is. Richard, what is to be done?
Wither democracy.
Yes. But I think they were true believers. So I thought the scene was kind of an off note for myself. But at the same time, I get it. I'm not saying that she didn't cry when she realized I couldn't bring myself to vote. You know, like, because even then, you know, I think these people believed in McCain, even though he was basically showing that he was as ambitious as any other politician and just wanted to, like, the campaign manager at the end was a lot more realistic. They all want to be loved. They're all the same. You know?
Yeah.
That was that moment in the bar was actually, I think, my favorite scene in the whole movie, where they're all kind of
letting the guard down and
you know, being honest. There you're seeing them as professionals, kind of go, well, campaign's over.
Oh, and one of them was defending.
Did our best.
One of them was defending Cheney. You know, when you've lost the moral high ground to Dick Cheney.
That was my quote of the piece, Jim.
Yes, okay.
But let me ask you what your quote of the piece was.
I so
if you had
don't
a favorite quote.
I so don't want to go back to Alaska. I thought that was no, that was a good one. I wrote it down, but I've written a few down here.
That wasn't a bad quote. Like, I mean,
even I got this one. She called Jimmy Choos Johnny Choos to show how
I didn't get that one.
Yeah.
Good ear. And that's for anyone in the chat. What was your favorite quote of this movie? Love to hear that.
I sort of like, you know, the dawning, or not dawning realization, but the trouble that McCain had dealing with the sort of the angrier elements of the party, and you know, him addressing the crowd and seeing people, you know, shouting Muslim, and he would sort of look shocked for a second. You know, that line that I wrote down, there is a dark side to American populism. Some people, well, it's kind of writerly though, so I don't know if that was a favorite line.
But you don't have to have one. My favorite line, though,
it's a
was
notable line.
Anyway. The Cheney bit.
Yeah.
And even then,
and then he warns him off, and he
said
at it.
Cheney was misunderstood.
Yes.
Like,
sure.
What?
Sure he was. Yeah. Poor Dick
exactly.
Cheney.
Well, but mind you, a great counter to the, you know, when we're on the wrong side of Dick Cheney, we have to question the choices we've made in life, which is really the heart of the movie, like, of its limited worldview. It's like, well, we chose her, like it created that crazy whack job base.
Yeah.
But his counter that he's misunderstood. Where the hell was I going with that, Jim?
That he's misunderstood.
No,
while you're thinking, I want to bring up a line from Law and Order. It was in the first 5 seasons or whatever. I can't remember what episode, and I still quote this, but it was that Stephen Hill, I think, was the actor the first DA. Really, he was super old at the time, and he always looked tired. I think he actually died while the show was being shot. But he was talking about left-wing judges, and he was saying, you know, in the Supreme Court, and he goes, "Oh, Judge Wilson or whatever." He goes, "That guy's so far over to the side, he has to look left to see, or he has to look right to see Thurgood Marshall, or something like that. It was just such a zing. It was such a great line. But yeah, no, in terms of this, I don't know if I had a favorite line. Running a fucking campaign that my kids can be proud of. That was kind of a good one. So he apparently the McCain camp was
10 years.
Yeah, was displeased with how much blue language he used, which actually kind of shocked me too. I didn't think he'd be a swearer, but the guy was in the Navy and they invented swearing, right? So
he was in the Navy. His dad was an admiral in the Navy.
Yeah,
I suspect F sharps were a regular part of his lingo.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well,
and the
actually,
story that he told about his grandfather dying the day after Japan surrendered was kind of interesting. Like he just sort of dropped dead because he didn't really have purpose anymore.
Yeah.
And that was kind of.
I think that goes to back to what you're asking for. I thought that scene went to his overall motivation. You know, they just like once they're in, they don't want to leave.
Yeah.
To quote a disgraced Republican, because he got caught with his Argentinian girlfriend. I was going to these mountains, but not. But he had a great line about why. Actually, being interviewed by Nicole Harris, had a great line about, well, what's the name of the game but to stay in the game? And yeah, like even that, one of the reasons why. Never mind the high-minded, it's an American tradition, this is why you can't give a concession speech, you egomaniac, is also because to do that is literally like, this is, if I was one of those apparatchiks, if I was John McCain, I'm like, she's not going to fucking say goodbye to me until I'm ready to say goodbye. Because that's that kind of move. Anyway, thanks, John. You've done so much for the party. It's about me now. You know? Yeah, listen, I do want to quickly, which I haven't done yet. I've not begged for one like, not one subscription, or notification.
Click.
Ring the bell.
Click.
Let's go back
Put
to
your
the
finger
like.
on the bell.
Because I, much like an elected official, love to be loved. Please like me.
There we go.
I would, and it's funny actually, now that we're gonna some fun, it made me think of Sally Fields, you know, Overcome with Emotion.
No.
It is actually unfortunate she's made fun of. Overcome with, you really do like me.
Yeah.
You know, which every actor goes through. You know, am I loved? You know, but actors, they refer to her as an actor, but a big chunk of being an elected official is acting. You know, it's that, and so part of it is, you get on stage because you're shy, or you're, you know, no.
Yeah.
You get on up there because you love that energy. You don't, the stress you feel is excitement. You know,
on SCTV they had an election once, and one of the candidates was Joe Flaherty playing Vic Hedges. It'd be like, vote for me, Vic Hedges, the alternative. And his big campaign promise was that he saved a lot of people's lives. He goes, "Look out, kid!" and then he jumps off screen to push a kid out of the way of a speeding car.
Shashank chimes in. He was unable to watch the movie due to his tight college schedule, and totally understand that, man. That's it. Well, Jim, okay, we're getting to the wrap-up point, I think. But before we get into some final thoughts and any other tidbits, would you say this movie's worth your time?
Oh yeah, especially if you're into this kind of thing. I think for people who didn't follow politics, I mean, the cues are all, the music cues kind of come in and they say, "Ooh, this is a bad moment, and this is a good moment." It's pretty subtle. I don't know if, but people who like, it's funny. I just this household, we just watched the Comey Rule, which was the 2-part miniseries about James Comey and his run-ins with with Donald Trump, and it was. Did you watch it?
Yes.
It was kind of interesting, but these are both like Aaron
and
Sorkin.
You know what? You're not answering the question, so we're going to jump to another comment. We'll circle back.
Sure.
Jelly Duck's got to go. He's just making music stuff.
Take care.
Later. Okay.
I was just gonna say though that they're both like Aaron Sorkin nightmares. Like it's sort of like the opposite end of the West Wing, where things are sort of falling apart, and they still have those not so much in this one, but they have these kind of people who are usually competent in a situation. They can be very articulate about it, and the level of detail is pretty excruciating sometimes, but it's almost like the flip side of West Wing. So if you're a Sorkin fan, like Sorkin-ish, if you like that kind of stuff, you'd like this. If not, if you like explosions, don't watch this.
Shawshank, I think it's worthwhile watching because it's actually, here's why I think it's worth watching. It's got a better analysis of how these human beings really interact than the West Wing ever had. The West Wing is the fantasy of how these people behave and work and everything. That's, there is a lot more the minister in how these things work than it is the West Wing. And when it comes to a campaign, as Richard is, seen way more campaigns than I ever have, says this is a lot of how it works. Most of the time they look good after because they won. Everyone thought Obama was brilliant. Maybe it was just the context of the time, but I agree with you, Jim, that there is a Sorkin-esque quality, and I mean this positively, though. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of talking.
Yeah.
And I thought actually, which is why I think they actually chose their look, is that they're like, no, we need to make this and not to patronize the viewer, to patronize the audience, but we need to make this as simple as we can, because a lot of this stuff, and they even allude to it, is like, most people don't give a shit about any of this stuff. It's obscure and hard and detailed, almost by design. Like, I mean, Jim, you're a sports fan. You think about a lot of sports fan and the level of detail and statistics and analysis, and these are the same people as I don't get it. It's like, but you get that, But yeah, I think it's worthwhile watching. What I would suggest to Shawshank is we should somehow figure out how we can incorporate this analysis into your college schedule. So, at least one teacher should be saying, what the hell? Let's suggest this movie, and if they do that, you can watch it in class time. Anyway, Shawshank, we understand. We did say goodbye to Jelly Duck, though, right?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
So, would you say, though, Jim, short version? Yeah, it's worth your time if you're into this stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And it's timely, and it's timely on several levels. For one, in the micro sense, is that we have an election coming up in about 15 days, and in the other sense, it involves Biden. It involves some of these guys are still, in the game. They're still.
Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham fucked up his Lieberman attempt.
So
which was actually more accurate, because if it didn't get out and he announced it at the convention, all those whack jobs would have had to eat it. They wouldn't have liked it, but they would have eaten it, because by then it's announced.
So it's timely on several levels. Interestingly, there's a community
episode. Chose that time, Jim.
There's a community episode that features Joe Biden visiting Greendale, which is interesting.
Eliza Dushku.
Yes, to look and go back and look at, and they don't really show him
as the cool VP.
Yeah, he's just sort of sleeping. You just hear his voice, but in any case, I was going to say, I don't know if you watch a lot of these just in general, and I can't think of tons of these kinds of movies, political movies that I've watched. Do you have a favorite one, or do you typically watch these or political movies?
I do actually, and as a matter of fact, I think when I say favorite, I'm overqualifying it. One of my favorites is actually next week's movie. And I'll save that for when we announce it.
Sure.
And then we'll find out next week if it holds up, and I might change my mind. But yeah, I do enjoy this genre if it's done well. It's funny though, I prefer the more comic angles on it. I think another one of my favorites is The Death of Stalin. Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister, still some of the best political television, even though made in the early 80s. It's you could watch that and go, oh, that's exactly what happens now in every actual political office. We kind of give these folks, because they were successful at this level, a certain amount of credibility they do not deserve.
Yeah.
They're not, we elect people we wouldn't hire for this job, for any of these jobs. For every Obama that works out, most of the time it's a Trudeau. And Trudeau the younger, I'm referring to, who's done an average job getting us through this pandemic, and thank God for that. I really mean that. But mostly it's like, he's listening to his experts. And that isn't a bad thing either. But none of these people are revolutionaries. None of them are radical. And even if one of the great things about what's going on in the United States for me is it kind of gives me a moment to take my own head out of my ass every now and then. It's like, as a incredibly lazy New Democrat, it's like, I don't know, would I want all my radical stuff to happen then, or would we be just like the crazy right wing? I don't think that, but at the same time, I have to allow for it, right? Or do I end up just following any idiot who's getting me what I want? You got to think of that. I was watching on some really Marxist thing where there's a guy legitimately trying to defend, not legitimately, honestly, trying to defend fucking Stalin. It's like, no, that wasn't a fascist fake news, you crazy whack job. It's Stalin. He was a bastard. Fuck that guy.
I got a million dead Ukrainians that he can talk to.
Millions upon millions. He just, he had a longer amount of time to kill more people. And set. Not that Lenin was some great saint either. I mean, when the revolution was happening, he was in an armored train being shipped in by the Germans to take over and manipulate the situation. Jesus Christ.
I think these are all just basically every political story is about overconfidence, perhaps.
It's all the Dunning-Kruger effect. And once in a while you get somebody, and that was a great moment at the end of the thing. She can't name a constitutional case, a Supreme Court case. He taught constitutional law as a professor. The one little, he at least had that going for him, But even then, and again, we're not even talking about any actual radical change. Obama, in some ways, if the American empire is falling, and who knows, it could be the time before the 5 good emperors, so we don't know. But if it's falling, at best he did is slow the slide.
Yeah.
But you had Bush before him.
Oof.
And it's not like it went to even back to the Clintons, which wasn't any great shakes, especially if you're black.
Yeah.
For all his love of black people, he threw him in jail, no problem. Kamala Harris, no problem throwing black people in jail.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, yeah, it's, anyway, what did you think? Let's get back to more of the fun parts of the film. Well, maybe this isn't a fun part, but more talking about the film and that foreshadowing. I kind of like the fact that some of these, well, one of the things was I thought, you know, if anything, you look at this film and then you think about what's going on now and you go, rallies are bullshit. What do they have to do with anything? We have not seen one Democratic rally for fucking months. And Biden is kicking Trump's ass.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are there any political apparatchiks are now going, you know what? Do we have to ever do a rally?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. Like, you know, those rallies seem to only have value when you're already winning, you know? But otherwise, I mean, Trump's having a lot of great rallies now. Like, I mean, the numbers are starting to go back up, but
just give it 3 weeks. What's the incubation period of COVID? But you know, I have to say, I back in 2008, I sort of took the day off. I said to myself, you know what? Obama's such a big deal that if and when he comes to North Dakota, which is the state immediate to the south of us, for those of you who don't live in North America, I should go see him. And so I signed up for the newsletter.
In Winnipeg.
What's that? This is before he was president. Like this is when he was. This is 2008.
Yeah.
Yeah. So him and Hillary were both battling for the primary there,
Gotcha.
and they're going, you know, because every state has one, so they were going around to the states, and then they went to the big hockey arena in probably Fargo, I want to say, but. Anyway, so I signed up, got my free ticket, and went down there, and I saw a bunch of Winnipeg City councilors, Gervasi, and a few others too. And then, and I thought, oh, am I being I'm being a political nerd and that sort of thing. And afterwards, I told everybody not everybody, but I told people that I went. And they said, oh, you should have told me. I would have gone with you too. But having seen it, it was interesting because there was no. It's like seeing a sports game live. Is that there's nobody framing it for you. It's just you get to see the whole thing. You don't see parts of a speech, you see the whole speech. And both him and Hillary spoke, and I was actually equally impressed with Hillary at the time because she seemed to know her shit. She knew her policy stuff, and she had good answers on like rural New York agricultural policy and things like that. Not super sexy topics, but she knew her stuff, and she was clearly intelligent. If you were really
just hiring for the job,
yeah,
Hillary should have won in 2008. If we're talking about hiring for the job, like, hey, who has demonstrated experience in this? Oh, Hillary.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, taking the ideological stuff out of it. Yeah, the thing is, though, I wrote this down, and I'm like, I want to say tent revival, although I got suckered by it as well. I voted for Jagmeet. Yeah. But what I thought about these two is Americans love that, or American political culture is very similar to their religious history, their Christian religiosity, which, you know, especially in some parts of the United States, tent revivals.
Yeah.
And so these rallies they're always for the faithful. It's not like a rally is, come, we will all scream like a rock concert, and that's where I'll change your mind. You know, it's always like it's more about firing up your base or giving people a religious experience. And I kind of looked at both the way the element of the tent revival that both Sarah Palin was taking, tapping into, let's say, and what Trump does is almost the only two differences. Sarah Palin's a believer, like, I mean, in that American ugly populist Christian with a capital C. Even that's kind of
performative.
Well, no, I like say that American Christianity, like the not mainline church, not these aren't Lutherans. There's no textual analysis of the Bible. Very much some fire and brimstone, some prosperity gospel, and a lot of charismatic stuff. And they even referred to it. She's been part of a church that had speaking in tongues and that. So there's that tent revival kind of but she's a believer, and so she's getting off on it and kind of channeling it. Whereas Trump, the difference with him is he's a huckster. He's that snake oil salesman saying, "All right, we got some rubes here. I could give them this shtick." But that's the break point. You got a true believer in Sarah Palin, notwithstanding her own problems, her own corruption. I mean, and it wouldn't be the first time a true believer is also taken out of the church, Kitty. So I'm not, but I don't think her corruption issues disqualify her from being a true believer. But does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Or
if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Fits in so many situations. I was going to say, in terms of, it's not sort of a. It's sort of about
Shawshank. That's great. Love Sorkin, so I definitely would watch this. It's not. Would you agree with me, Jim? Don't think it's going to be a Sorkin kind of. There's Sorkin elements, but it's not. They aren't doing a this isn't a Sorkinized story.
No, it's sort of in a genre that I think he maybe started, the sort of embedded storyteller on part of a campaign,
especially looking at the apparatchiks.
There's
looking at the apparatchiks as opposed to just the elected officials with their loyal servants.
There was a Robert Redford movie on Turner Classic Movies,
The Candidate.
The Candidate, which I watched in the last year. I really
do enjoy these movies.
I sort of, it was okay. I didn't. I think it was more referring to something going on at the time. So I sort of didn't. I was kind of underwhelmed by it. Maybe I need to watch it again. But
it comes from that same element Dave came from.
Yeah.
That sort of, we just need a regular person.
Yeah. And it was. It's kind of cool. I like watching older movies, but they also played. What's the word? I think it's just called Campaign. It was about an hour long. It was just about Kennedy versus whoever he fought for the primary, Humphrey. Anyway, and it was just sort of contrasting the two, before he was the nominee.
Yeah.
It's just like an old gray dude versus a young kind of hotshot.
Another young, sexy star.
Yeah.
Which,
and that was that was kind of cool, actually, to see it.
This is so new. It's no, Kennedy, Teddy Roosevelt was a star.
I'd have to say, though, one of my favorite movies, not just a political movie, is All the President's Men. I still think that's super subtle, but it's got so many weird little parts in it. Oh, it's so awesome. Genre, They have a rooftop restaurant scene, and a plane flies over, so the actors have to stop talking. And they just incorporate it right into the movie. Yeah. And then this happens all the time. Robert Redford picks up the phone and he says the wrong name into it. Just keep rolling, and it's just beautiful. There's a lot of little weirdness, and Hal Holbrook is Mark Felt, or now we know is Mark Felt. Deep Throat is awesome.
Who also went to jail because, he lied about his involvement with that, not MK Ultra, that FBI spying on. Okay, Shawshank's got a split. All right, guys, need to leave now for college classes. We'll tune in to watch this later. Have a great Shawshank. You have a great week.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for popping in, man.
Yeah.
And hey, great review on the
Chicago 7.
The trial of the Chicago 7. Thanks, Jim. And I'm going to watch it and put up my own review. Or unless Jim and I, we can chat afterwards. Maybe we can incorporate it into a future
battling reviews.
Well, not battling. Like, I'm not. He had an interesting take, and I want to watch it to see if I agree with his take. But it was a great review. Definitely recommend it. I will put a link somewhere up here. I think up here and in the description to Shawshank's review. All right, Jim, I briefly interrupted you for that.
I think I was winding down on that comment anyway. So that's
here. Fine. While we're thinking of before we think of final thoughts,
sure.
Why don't you announce that next week? It's not just a movie, not just a movie, but a does it hold up flick. Mm-hmm. What are we going to be? What are we looking at, Jim?
We are looking at the movie Primary Colors with John Travolta and Emma Thompson, and is that Dulé Hill? It is. It is.
Yeah.
Called it. I wonder who it's about. Anyway, and here's a little treat, and I'll tell a little story. You got to remind me. But there's a scene on the stairs with a future West Wing star, and I'll fill you in about that.
Next week.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, little tease.
So watch for
tease.
that. Yeah,
will do.
And we're on Sunday night too. We're on Sunday night. So
that is correct.
Date,
we're moving to you're absolutely right, Jim. We're moving to Sunday nights. Here, let me get that out of your face. That's right, folks. We're moving to Sunday for about 6 weeks into I think December 7th. We return to the Mondays, but up to that point, we'll be doing this. Otherwise, same time. Or we might even come a little earlier, 9 or 9:30. We've got some other programming things we might be trying next month. But yes, we will be starting on Sundays. So that would be then 9:30, October 25th, Sunday, 9:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time, -5 coordinated Universal Time offset.
Well done.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm sorry, and I'm getting good at remembering this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, Jim. Final thoughts. Give us a few hot takes.
Here's one I hadn't mentioned so far. That Tina Fey line, and I'm glad they included Saturday Night Live. I think we mentioned it earlier. I'm a big fan. I've even been in the studio to watch a show, but that's my little brag. When she says, "I can see Russia from my house," I had forgotten that was Tina Fey. I actually thought that was a Sarah Palin line when she says, we're neighbors with Russia or something. But Tina Fey had broken that down into, "I can see Russia from my house." And anyway, I found that very funny. I was like, oh yeah, I guess she didn't say that verbatim anywhere.
Yeah. Close enough. I feel. Anything else?
No, it's yeah, I think we covered it all. Nice turns by Sarah Paulson. I thought Ed Harris was, like I said earlier, great. I like to see him when he's not menacing all the time, and it was quite good. And yeah, it's sort of fun to watch people rip each other to shreds on screen. So,
you know what? For myself, Jim, I think in some ways it's almost watching a movie about politicians, like actual elected officials, especially in a campaign. it becomes almost meta. I think it's one of the reasons why actors love politicians and vice versa. You know, it's one of the few areas that movie stars go, well, I was at the White House Correspondents' Day. Like, I mean, they'll brag on this.
Yeah.
In a way, I saw a great recent interview actually with well, I can say I saw the whole interview. It's like a 3-minute YouTube clip. Kevin Hart, I guess he got invited to one of the first early parties at the Obama White House.
Okay.
And he goes, he's like, I'm going to make it happen. He cancels a gig, whatever. He's going to go to the White House. Not as an act. He's not, he's just been invited to the party. And was it the first, or well, I don't know where it was in Obama's presidency. He goes and he's talking about this, and he's there, and then he's just standing in a line waiting to get the grip and grin, and Obama's at the podium, and then Obama, I guess, points at him and say, hey, Kev, you made it. And he was saying like it was he got wobbly. Like, first of all, he's bragging about the fact that Obama pointed him out, and he's doing it like a good comic would, you know, noting that it's like, I was like giddy about, oh my God, Obama pointed me out. And then he's bragging about, he made a nickname for me. Like, and he's just getting off on it so much. And honestly and joyfully. And again, it's why I can't be as hard on folks who look at Obama in that way, especially if you're Black. You know, any other, you know, might look at that going, wow, this is a big thing that means something to me, even though I don't think it really, again, at best slowed the slide. They still don't really have health care. They don't have parental leave. They don't have, like, I mean, these things that make anyway. Where the hell was I going with that? Obama.
Kevin Hart.
No. The actors, but that's the thing, that actors love it. So there's these weird little unintentional meta moments. I do think Julianne Moore did a great job and put some lipstick on a metaphorical pig. Like, I mean, this is not a nice woman. She kind of awful in a number of respects. And she gave her some sympathy and gave her as much depth as he can in a movie of the week, especially in one where she is not meant to look good. You know, it's the apparatchiks that are supposed to look good. John McCain is supposed to look good. She is not the person to look good. It's almost like they're like, well, we don't want to be accused of just running down this woman, but we really don't like her. So that she was able to deliver that was great. But it says the best actress in American politics, and it's like, yeah, you guys are getting a really self-referential here.
How'd that work out? How'd that work out for you? And on another level too, I was just thinking while we were talking, this is a movie about people that are bad listeners.
No, that's a great point, Jim. You know, and partly because they're not trained to be.
Yeah,
that's not how you succeed. You're actually the loudest one in the room, you know. And I say this as a terrible listener myself. Like, I mean, I hate it when I edit our videos, Jim, when I look at it, because it's like the amount of volume I have, how much I talk and over talk. I think I am doing slightly better. I improve every thing, but I'm not. And one, these people are human beings. That is the way campaigns really work. They're not at that level. That's the way it works. If they won, they would all been geniuses. It's like James Carville is still being feted for going, it's the economy, stupid, like 30 years ago. Like, I mean, and that he may have been right. He may have been like, but sometimes just larger social forces are at work here. It's not the campaign that won it, you know? I don't think our mayor won because he ran such a brilliant campaign. He's ambitious. He worked hard. He didn't run a terrible campaign, but people didn't want Mayor Sam. and they didn't want Judy.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
That's not genius campaigning. That's you, you know. Anyway, so I think on that note, there is my final 18 thoughts in a multiple bracketed nesting.
We're recreating the
of
post-movie coffee shop conversations. That's
there we go. Okay, everybody, let's just want to thank those who are still with us. Thank you all so much for joining us. We I look forward to this every week. Jim looks forward to this every week. You guys really do make this make it fun for us, and so thanks so much for watching. And Jim, I think it's time to bring the house music down.
Sure.
And if you're cool with it, I think I'm gonna cue the outro.
Vote early and vote often.
I've been